Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the City Planning Commission Review Session of February 28th, 2022. Time is 1 o'clock and we have a quorum. So let's get right into it. I want to thank all of you for your timeliness, and I'm going to go over to Ryan for the calendar of the day.
Yep. The first item on the agenda is a zoning map and zoning text amendment in the Bronx Community District 9. Our presenter is Manny Lagares. Manny.
Good afternoon, commissioners. This is the 1810 Randall Avenue rezoning here before you for certification. Next slide, please. The project site is located in the Soundview section of Bronx Community District number 9. The applicant is the Second Pentecostal Church of God Hermosa and Vertical Community Development, LLC. They are seeking a zoning map amendment from R4A C12 and R5 C12 to R6 C12. In addition, there's a zoning text amendment to Appendix F of the zoning resolution designating the rezoning area as an MIH area. Next slide, please. The project area development site is outlined in red. It's bounded on the north by Randall Avenue, on the east by Taylor Avenue, on the south by Lacombe Avenue, and Beach Avenue forms the western boundary. The development site is approximately 20,000 square feet of lot area, and it currently contains 3 lots. 2 of those lots contain 2 buildings. One is for an existing house of worship, and the other building contains 4 commercial uses, one of which is vacant. Now, to the right, or looking at the east portion of the development site, there's a parking area, accessory parking to the house of worship, and it has a capacity of 20 cars. The remainder of the block is 2- and 3-story, 1- and 2-family residences. And the same is true for the surrounding areas, basically 2, 3 stories, attached, semi-detached homes in the area. Now, the transportation is good. You have the Bronx 27 bus, which travels east-west along Randall Avenue. And you also have the Bronx 39, which travels north-south at Soundview Avenue. Next slide, please. In the center, you have the block frontage on Randall Avenue, which is the development site in red. And just moving across Taylor Avenue, you have the Seabury Daycare Center. And 2 blocks away from there, you have PS 69. And above that, you have the Holy Cross Church and School. And again, this this land use map indicates the predominance of low-density residential. However, when you go to the west, 2 or 3 blocks away, you can see that there are in the yellow 6-story developments nearby. Next slide, please. These are photographs of the site. We're looking from Randall Avenue South at the parking area that I mentioned, which is accessory to the house of worship. Immediately to the right is the house of worship itself. On the second slide to the right, you see that adjacent to the house of worship, you have the 4 commercial uses. And the bottom left slide is at the intersection of Randall Avenue and Beach Avenue. It shows you the other side of the building. Next slide, please. Here we're looking at Beach Avenue. We're looking south again. We're at the Randall Avenue, and you can see in the background the character. It's again basically low density housing. The same is true on the right. It shows the building almost abutting on the residences themselves. Next slide, please. This is your existing and zoning maps. Again, in the center, you see that the site is split. It's on the western portion of that block is R4A, and on the eastern portion is R5. The drawing on the right indicates what the zoning proposal will do at this location, the establishment of an R6 zoning district, which will allow the applicant to build an 8-story mixed-use building. Next slide, please. And the other action is the text amendment to Appendix F, the zoning resolution, as you can see here, is mapped. And the applicant is selected option 1 and option 2. And the option 1 affords you 42 dwelling units, and option 2, 51 dwelling units over the site. And I just want to mention that the overall development is 100% affordable. Next slide, please. The site plan indicates that your 8-story building is stepping down. It steps down towards the frontage of Randall Avenue, as well as it gets closer to the residential homes on the south. It steps down from 8 to 6 stories to 4 stories. And in addition to that, the applicant has provided an 8-foot side yard for further separation of these uses, allowing, for light and air to these adjacent abutting uses. Next slide, please. Okay, the floor plan in blue, you see there is an activity room, community hall for the house of worship, which will stay at the location. And just below that, you have the chapel with a seating capacity of 216 seats. The access to the congregation, as you can see in red, is off of Randall Avenue, as well as the residential access. And in green, you see there are 2 recreation centers. And in the back, you'll have accessory parking for 16 cars, which will be accessed through Taylor Avenue, which is a 2-way street. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a rendering of what the development will look like. I mentioned already that it's an 8-story mixed-use building, residential and community facility, no commercial at all. The total lot area is approximately 96,000 square feet of a floor area, out of which approximately 15,000 square feet will go to the house of worship for development on the ground floor, at the mezzanine level, and also cellar space where they will have at least 3 classrooms. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask commissioners to use the raise hand function to signal if they have questions. And while they do that, I'm just going to pose a couple just to get us started. That I don't know if there will be many here, but we'll see. I see Vice Chair Knuckles. I'll come to him in one sec. Say a little bit more about the context here. Of course, I recognize that we're at the certification phase, but say a little bit more about the context of R6 here in connection to the surrounding area and how we should view this as appropriate here.
Okay. The development site again is split between R4 and R5, and again, the R4 is a low density zone, which allows that type of use. The R5 will give you that 1.25 FAR. The closest facilities, as I mentioned in my presentation, will be to the left, which they're more or less, the applicant is stating that in this area, you do have higher density in the area already, and that their proposal would benefit the area itself.
I would add also that the intersection of Downview and Randall is quite a wide intersection, and it can hold a little more density. Although you have the smaller residential to the south, as it fronts out to Randall, that is a bit of a wider intersection with some commercial uses in the other church that exists kind of diagonal across.
Thank you. Can you who was just speaking? Identify yourself, since you did not pop up on the screen.
Apologies for that, and good afternoon, Commissioners. It's Sean Brady, the Bronx Deputy Director.
Great, thank you. Okay, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Chair. Manny, I noticed that under either of the unit count scenarios, the layout has the vast majority of the units being studios. Is this a programmatic requirement of heirs, or is this something that the developers are proposing for this specific unit project?
Yeah, the units for heirs are basically smaller than if you were going for 2-family or 3-family. And again, this is for senior citizens. Off the top of my head, I would a number for that would be around 300 and some change of square footage for those units. So it's very small.
Well, I notice you have there's several 1-bedroom apartments. So where do they make the distinction between, the studios and 1-bedrooms? Do you know?
No, I don't know, but I can research that for you and would happily get back to you with that answer.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. And to follow up on that, it's 167 total units. They are all affordable, but only 150 of them are in the heirs program. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
And what are the others? What are the other 17?
The other 17 are also for senior housing. So in fact, after Friday's meeting with you and the others, I did contact the applicant to find out, what is the name of this program. And they told me they don't have a program yet, but they're seeking either city or some type of federal funding for senior housing. And again, they reiterated to me that it's a 100% affordable, and they're going for 100% affordable senior housing.
Yeah.
Commissioner Rampersad.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I had a similar question as Vice Chair Knuckles, and I wasn't too sure about the unit breakdown. So if you can get back to us on that, I really appreciate it. The other question I had was with regards to signage. I'm just curious because from the rendering, you can't tell where the house of worship would be located. Have they provided any kind of other renderings that show signage?
No.
Identify. Okay.
No, I will request one. This was the only one they provided when I requested one, but I will let them know that we need something with signage for this development.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Marin.
Thank you. Manny, I have a question along the similar lines that Commissioner Knuckles and Rampersad had, except I have a different view on this and was wondering if you have any historic information on these heirs units and the marketability of studios, because I know it's been a question about, why are we providing just a studio? And we understand that the seniors need limited space, but there are some seniors that would like a separate bedroom. And that's always been a question in the development industry. So if there was some historic information on how the marketing and leasing up of these units went, that would be very helpful. My second, and I don't think you'll have that information now. My second question was, I kind of figured, Manny. My second question is more of a statement and along the lines of Commissioner Rampersad's identification of the worship space. I do notice that it's to the back, and I believe it's on Taylor Avenue. No, not Taylor. On Beach Avenue is no. I'm correct.
It's on Randall.
The House of Worship. Yeah, it is, but the church space, the worship space itself, is at the lower western corner, which is the part that sits next to the homes that has no windows. And if you bring up the floor plan, you'll see what I'm talking about. And I'm just wondering if there was any opportunity maybe to include some type of windows. You don't see the worship space, and it is a blank wall along that street. So along with signage, it would be helpful to identify that space. Maybe how they articulate it, articulate the wall, maybe mimicking windows and showing some sort of religious motifs or something. It's just blank and give its blank face to the street. So thank you.
Yes, I will convey. You're welcome. I will convey this information to the applicant.
Yeah, and I think that more important for us is the marketability and lease up of those studios and ones. I think that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner. Looking to see if anybody else has questions or comments here. Seeing none, this matter is certified. We thank you very much for the presentation, Manny. We'll see you soon. And we're going to move on to our next item of the day, Manhattan pre-hearing item. So Ryan, would you like to introduce that?
Sure. It's the second item on the agenda, pre-hearing review of a zoning map and zoning text amendments and special permits in Manhattan Community District 10. Our presenter is Jose Trucios. Jose?
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
All right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is 145 Lenox Avenue. Next slide, please. A private application on 145 Lenox LLC for a zoning map amendment, a zoning text amendment, 3 special permits, 3 city planning commission certifications to facilitate a development of a mixed-use development in Community District 10, Manhattan. The application was certified on November 15 of 2021 and was duly referred to the Manhattan Community Board 10 and Board of Presidents for 60 and 30 days, respectively. The proposal will yield a new mixed-use building with up to 939 new apartments in Central Harlem, as many as 282 of them reserved for low and middle-income households under the mandatory inclusionary housing program. It will also include commercial office space, including ground floor retail and a museum of civil rights, a new headquarters for the National Action Network, and up to 141 off-street accessory parking spaces in a below-grade facility. Next slide. The project area, which is coterminous with the development site, is located at the intersection of 145 and Lenox Avenue in the northern portion of Central Harlem. The site is immediately adjacent to the 3 subway stop at 145th Street and across Lenox Avenue from the Colonel Young Playground. And it's just west of 145th Street to the Bronx. The development site is zone CA3, R72 with a C1 commercial overlay. CA districts do not permit residential uses and will also not permit a museum. The portion of the development site that is zone R72 with the C1 commercial overlay, C14 commercial overlay, is on Lenox Avenue and West 144th Street. This portion of the development site is approximately 10,000 square feet and is the only portion of the development site that will allow residential use. The surrounding area is predominantly zone R72 with multifamily residential buildings, the average 5 to 6 stories in height. There are also large residential complexes that are very close to the development site, including the Esplanade Gardens, which is located at the northeast corner of West 145th Street in Lenox Avenue, the New York City Housing Authority Drew Hamilton houses, which are 1,000 feet to the west, and the Saber Park Apartments, 1,000 feet of the south development site. Each of these developments vary in height from 15 to 30 stories. Next slide, please. The development site currently consists of vacant land, a shuttered gas station, and active gas station that also provides parking for area residents, and some active commercial, retail, and community facility uses. To facilitate the development, the applicant is requesting the following land use actions: a zoning map amendment to rezone the project area from the existing CA3 R72 with the C1 commercial overlay zoning districts to a C46 zoning district, a zoning text amendment to map the area as MIH on the site, and to create a special permit to allow the location of the banquet hall to be located above residential units at the top of the Tower 1. 3 special permits with the newly created large-scale general development to modify the height and setback regulations, use location regulations, community facility signage regulation, and to waive required accessory parking. Additionally, there are 3 CPC special permits to waive the retail frontage regulation and to permit a total of 3 car cuts. Next slide. Due to the unknown market conditions, the proposed development will be constructed under either 2 potential development scenarios: a commercial podium and a residential podium scenario. The overall massing and building height do not change with that 2 scenarios, where varies is the balance of commercial versus residential floor area on the lower floors of building 1, highlighted in the hash area of this drawing. The proposed building height is 363 feet, approximately 30 stories. This height does not include the mechanical bulkhead. A residential podium will create 939 residential units, while the commercial podium 866 residential units. The development will include between 217 or 282 permanently affordable under MIH, depending on which scenario option is developed. In either scenario, the development will include a new headquarters for the National Action Network, a banquet hall, and a museum of civil rights. The development will be designed pursuant to tower regulations and building heights determined by the sky exposure plane. C46 does not require a base height. That's require a base height of 80 feet, 85 feet, and setbacks of 10 feet along wide streets and 15 feet on the narrow streets. Next slide, please. With respect to the draft environmental impact statement, a scoping meeting was held on May 10 of 2021, and a notice of completion was issued on November 12 of the same year. The DIS identified significant adverse impacts to open space and construction period noise, and the applicant is currently exploring mitigation measures identified in the DIS, and this will be explored further in the final environmental impact statement. Next slide. After certification, the applicant filed a modification to the existing special permit application pursuant to the section 74C44C to modify the sign regulations and to permit community facility signage on the mid-block of West 145th Street. The special permit is required because in C46 district, the zoning resolutions limits the total surface area of accessory signs, non-illuminated signs, and illuminated signs, as also limiting the projection of permitted signs and the height of signs. The drawing illustrates the proposed community facility signage program for a total surface area of 1,650 square feet, consisting of two multifaceted illuminated blaze signs, each with total signage surface of around 225 square feet, a portion of which is located above height of 40 feet and below a height of 89 feet, and projecting 36 inches across the street line of West 45th Street. And last, a 1,200 square foot illuminated sign located above height of 40 feet and below a height of the 89 feet as well. Next slide, please. The museum entrance is located in West 46th Street, approximately 90 feet from the corner of West 145th Street and Lenox Avenue. Approval of the signage waivers will, according to the applicant, provide signage that is adequate for identifying the museum and establish its presence on West 45th Street and the Central Harlem community. Next slide, please. On January 5th, Manhattan Community Board 10 voted to disapprove the application by a vote 35 in favor of disapproval, 0 opposed, and 2 abstentions. Community Board did not include any conditions in the resolutions, but cited numerous concerns with the proposal related to the number of affordable units, the levels of affordability and unit mix, open space, congestions, and transportations, accessibility to infrastructure were also topics of discussion during the 2 public hearings. While CB10 did not meet to discuss the post-certification application for the signage waivers, they are aware of the proposed changes and opted to carry the same resolution as the one adopted on January 5th, which is disapproval of the application. Next slide. On February 23rd, the Manhattan Borough President recommended disapproval of the application unless the applicant commits to meeting the following conditions. And this is a summary of what was submitted by the Borough President. This includes increasing the number of affordable units to 50% of the total units, which will yield up to 469 affordable units, to also increase the portion of affordable family-sized units and provide units at MI levels that are more appropriate to the Harlem community. The Borough President also asked the applicant to work with the MTA, Department of Transportation, Department of Parks, and the local community to track the development's impact to the community and identify potential mitigation and improvements. To also update and include a specific language to the restricted declaration, committing to have the open space above the museum be accessible to the public and create community programs for local residents. While the Borough President supports the applicant's initiative to support parking, they ask to go further to incentivize car ownership by providing car sharing and bike parking options in the site, and to work with the local community and seek input to make the proposed development more contextual with the surrounding neighborhood, to create a plan for extending the use of the proposed geothermal plant to nearby developments, and last, establishing a construction task force to know and respond to construction impacts to the surrounding community. It is also worth mentioning that both the community board and board president noted in the resolution that the applicant's proposals lacks clarity on the proposed community benefits and its further development. And the applicant is aware of these conditions and is actively working with city agencies and other leadership to further develop a strategy. And the applicant will be able to add more details on this during the public hearing scheduled for March 2nd. Next slide, please. To summarize, approval of the actions will allow the applicant to develop 363 feet mixed-use building with up to 939 new apartments, with as many as 282 of them reserved for low and middle income households. It will also include commercial office space, ground floor retail, and a new headquarters for the National Action Network, and up to 141 off-street accessory parking spaces, and the Museum of Civil Rights. According to the applicant, the Museum of Civil Rights will be a first of its kind institution committing to preserving and promoting knowledge of the historic and contemporary intersectional struggles for civil rights, political rights, and social justice in the northern United States. The museum's gallery space will feature immersive multidisciplinary exhibits of the history of the Northern Civil Rights Movement and the contemporary social justice movements that continue to transform the social landscape in the United States. With that, I can answer questions, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Let me start with Vice Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Jose, I seem to recall at certification, there was at least one rendering of what an as of right construct would look like. And I think for the public hearing, it would be good to have that so we can contrast what would be permitted as opposed to what's proposed.
We'll know that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Before I go to the other commissioners, let me ask about the museum and particularly the space that is being contemplated for the museum, which is about 48,000 square foot space. As I understand it, this museum is in development. It is not an existing group that it would be seeking a new location. This is a brand new endeavor. Tell us where that stands, and also, and perhaps equally significantly, what could that space be used for if reserved as proposed for a space for a museum? If a museum does not occupy that space, what would happen next?
To answer the first question, from what we heard from the applicant, the museum is very close to finalizing their New York Board State of Origin certifications. So there is, for what we heard, is like very unlikely that a museum won't be located in here. We are ensuring that hopefully somebody from the museum can attend the public hearing to answer questions specifically about the conducted market analysis and also the research that they had done, including for the specific consultation of how financially feasible is to have a museum in here. The restricted declaration ties the use of the ground floor space that is currently being located for the museum for use group 4 and 3 community facility, which off the top of my head, I had to remember what exactly will relate to those uses, but I believe it's related to community, to nonprofit community facility uses, perhaps also some of, what is the word for this that I'm blanking on right now? Sorry, I'm forgetting.
Jose, schools are included in that, and I believe like
Health.
medical offices,
Mhm.
health care offices, things like that. Yeah.
Okay, great. That was you, Ryan, right?
Yes. Hi.
Okay.
Hi, it's Ryan. Yes.
Hello, that's okay. Okay, thank you for that. Let me go to Commissioner Goodrich.
So my first question is, and it's a small one. So the museum is not the developer. It's just what would be one of the tenants in the building. I do think well, let me just ask a question first. The project is sort of being framed as the music, that the project is the museum. Is there a reason for that, or?
I don't want to.
Because I for a second actually thought it was just the Museum of Civil Rights. So when you sort of hear it, it's sort of like, well, why wouldn't you want the Museum of Civil Rights? But it's actually a very large residential. It's the same old large residential development project. So I'm wondering if there's something particular like that I'm missing with the museum, or it's just going to be one of the tenants. Or is it part of the developer, or?
Hi, Commissioner Goodrich. This is Eric Botsford, Deputy Director at the Manhattan office. And I think the project is a mixed use project with the museum being a component of the project. And, but, it is also a significant residential project, has a fairly large amount of commercial space that could be located in the project as well. So it is truly a mixed use project. The museum has been an integral component of the project from its inception. And, over time, as we've worked with the applicant, and I think as Jose indicated, the museum component has come together and, has formed a more concrete component of this application with, an actual, as it's been described to us, a foundation that's been established to, start the museum, off, and again, more concrete steps recently to formalize the museum. But it is a mixed use project, to answer your question.
And just to add on that, I mean, what the applicant is also, sharing with us is that by them absorbing the cost of creating, the shell and core of the museum won't have to actually expend the money to build their own facility. And that could potentially be allocated to different community programs and resources that could be used for the neighborhood, including access to the community at a lower price than expected.
Thank you. There are some existing businesses and other, not just businesses. I think there are also maybe residences that are already there. I know that there's an Islamic center, for example, that's been there for some time, and some other small businesses, and this project would take up that whole block. So is there any information about where those businesses would go?
Yeah. So specific for a couple of businesses, so the national.
Well, actually, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said business. A mosque, an Islamic center is not a business. So let me correct myself. So the institutions would go, sorry.
Yeah, for the institutions or businesses that are currently located in there, the National Action Network is also located there, and they will be relocating into the new building. With the Islamic Center, there were conversations about having them also join the building, but they are in the process of purchasing a property that is not far away from the actual development site, and they won't be relocating into it. For the other businesses, there are conversations that are already ongoing. Some of them don't have leases that are currently expiring very soon, but given the time construction of this building, potentially will take 2 to 4 years. Some of the businesses are still in conversations to see if they're going to come back or if they're going to relocate somewhere else temporary, and it's still being under development strategy for relocation. But so far for the National Action Network, they will be relocating, and for the Islamic Center, they will be purchasing a brownstone somewhere else in Harlem. That's what we know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. While I look to see if there are other questions, let me ask what I think is going to be one of the perhaps most interesting questions that we'll see down the line here, both at the public hearing and also likely at the council, which is the question about affordability and the MIH, opportunity that exists here in contrast to any other numbers of units that could be offered as affordable. This is obviously a very big opportunity to create a lot of units at once, and that opportunity does not happen all that often. But there's also a practical element here of how what is required. So as this is an MIH project, there's certain minimum requirements that need to be affordable. But we've heard from the borough president, we certainly heard from the community board that they want more affordability. And I think obviously everybody would love to have more affordability all the time. The question that I have for you, Jose, and your colleagues in the Manhattan office is, how should we think about that question? When the conversation and when a borough president makes a recommendation that 50% of the units should be affordable, how should we be thinking about that? Other than, yes, of course, we would love that from a conceptual perspective. How should we think about that from a practical perspective here as to this project and its ability to succeed or even to proceed?
Before I get into what should happen or what I believe we can be doing on this, I just wanted to share what the applicant is proposing in terms of affordable housing. I realized that we didn't have a slide specifically for the breakdown. So in the size in the MIH area, they're proposing 25% of the total affordable, the total units to be affordable, which will yield around 280 units of affordable housing. The mix of the unit breakdown is still not finalized. The applicant is targeting about 21% for a studio, 52 for a 1-bedroom, 27 for 2 and 3 bedrooms, and ranging for the affordability levels of like 40% to 80% the area median income. That's so far what we know. If we kind of get a little more granular into it, how much monthly payments will be into those. For the units that are 87 units will be around 40% AMI. That will yield between $600 and for the studios, $600 a month, and for the 2 and 3 bedrooms around $900 and $1,000 respectively. So that will be in the lower part of the income for the affordable housing units. Definitely, we have raised these concerns to the applicant. They are aware of that wishes and needs of the community. They are currently meeting with other city agencies to see how this can be, potentially achieved. Meeting with HPD commissioner, I believe, by next week or so, very soon. This also is going to depend on the funding stream of the applicant. I am not familiar with how much money from the city is being allocated to this project specifically, but they are trying to do a push to get more of these units through potentially different funding streams, I believe.
Okay, thank you. And obviously this is a question that we can pose directly to the applicant on Wednesday, but I did wanted to see your thoughts before we did so. Okay, let me go to other commissioners if there are other questions. I don't see hands raised, so I will give a final opportunity here to see if there are any other questions. Does not seem like I am missing anybody. Okay, so we're going to send this over to a public hearing on Wednesday, March 2nd. So we'll look forward to that, and we'll look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you very much, Jose. We appreciate it. And thanks also Eric and Annie. We will see you all on Wednesday. Ryan, let's talk about future votes.
Sure. Staff have prepared reports for consideration on Wednesday, March 2nd for the Sutter Avenue rezoning. So if there's any questions on any of these, commissioners, just raise your hand. Also scheduled for a decision are the Tennyson Drive and 51 Wilbur Street. These are special district applications in Staten Island. Seeing anything? Okay. So moving on to post-hearing, we have post-hearing follow-ups on 14693 Guy Brewer Boulevard rezoning. Scott Solomon is here to discuss. Scott?
Thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon, commissioners. So this is I see the screen jumping here. Sorry about that. So this is a post-hearing follow-up for the project Ryan referenced, specifically addressing the appropriateness of the proposed R6A density. If you can move on to the next slide. So the project area is located in an auto-oriented neighborhood community, District 13, but is located within 1 block north of north and southbound stops of the Q111, Q113, and Q114, which provides access to downtown Jamaica and its host of transit connections, educational and employment centers, and other amenities. Next slide. And within that same 1 block radius is PS 52 at approximately 70 feet in height, and then a hotel which is approximately 65 feet in height to the south across from 147th Avenue. Next slide. And then regarding the the width of the intersecting streets, Guy Brewer Boulevard is a wide street at 80 feet and intersects with 147th Street. Move on to the next slide. So again, 147th, another 80-foot wide street immediately in front of the project area. Next slide. And then moving back to this area map, the department believes that the proposed R6A zoning district and the density and building envelope that it would facilitate is appropriate at this location on a major north-south corridor with ample bus stops in the immediate vicinity and buildings of a similar context to the north and south of the project area. The maximum street wall height of 65 feet and a setback of 10 feet will make the height of the building nearly imperceptible from the street. And mapping mandatory inclusionary housing will ensure that 11 of the proposed 42 dwelling units are permanently affordable to families making up to 60% of the area median income. So that sort of concludes the focus of these slides to address the R6A in the conversation that the committee board, the applicant was addressing from the borough president. But again, the applicant believed that the R6A to be appropriate density. The department concurs at this intersection of 2 wide streets.
Great, thank you very much. Are there questions? Did I see? Okay, Commissioner Rampershad, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So Scott, I just want to confirm. So they're not going with that alternate scenario because during the presentation they showed it was R6B, I believe it was.
Yeah, they wanted to show what they presented to the community board after the borough president's hearing by at their request to show what the density compared to would be and what the significant loss of housing would be as a result of an R6B. But it is still an application for R6A that the applicant and the department support.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Other questions or comments? Okay. Scott, thank you very much. Ryan, let's go on to the next one, Fulton Street.
Okay. Yeah, we have 3285 Fulton Street rezoning. Alexandra Patti Diaz here with another presentation, a little follow-up. Alexandra, you're here?
Hi.
Hi, okay.
Good afternoon, commissioners. This is a post-hearing follow-up presentation. Next, just a quick reminder, the 3285 Fulton Street rezoning it's proposed by Cypress Hill Local Development Corporation, and they're seeking a zoning map amendment and zoning text amendment to facilitate a new senior housing and a daycare center in East New York. Next. During the public review process, the BEP recommendation was to approve with conditions. Next. Part of the conditions was to modify the rezoning area to reduce the rezoning area to only half of the block and map an R7A district only on the project site, and for the 3 other lots to be mapped R6B district. And it's the desire of the Brooklyn office to respond to this recommendation. Next. So we believe that the R7A density is appropriate on this location as proposed on the whole block front, given its proximity to transit, but also to other high density districts mapped across the site during this New York rezoning, and where also important new community services and new affordable housing developments are currently under construction. Next. The modification as requested will result in 3 zoning districts mapped on a single block front, and as proposed by the borough president, we believe that is not an appropriate land use rationale. Next. It is our approach during the New York neighborhood plan and the subsequent rezoning that to strengthen the commercial corridor on Fulton Street, and the result of it was to map greater density alongside the subway stations and lower densities in between. And we believe the pushing density away from the subway station as proposed is also not appropriate. Next. We're also less concerned about redevelopment of these individual lots because that's not necessarily what we have seen in Fulton Street. First, all these lots are currently under different ownership, and the sites developed on this corridor has been either vacant lots or vacant buildings, and usually subsidized. These lots, it is our understanding that they are active residential buildings with active uses on the ground floor. And lastly, there is an area that these lots get redeveloped in the future. The proposed rezoning ensures that some MIH units will be provided. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Let's see if anybody has any questions for you on that follow-up. Okay. It doesn't look like. Alexandra, thank you very much for that. And Ryan, let's go to 1220 Avenue P.
Yeah, we have 1220 Avenue P rezoning. If there are any further questions on that, your staff are here to answer them. We can also do any further research on that. And then also the same on 103 Lee Avenue and Our Lady of Pity. That's the 272 East 151st Street rezoning. If there are any further questions on any of those, let us know. Okay.
Any no other questions? Okay, Ryan, any other business today that is worth our attention?
There's no further business today.
Okay, then with that, I'm going to see if there's a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those nay. That's an easy one. Thank you very much, Ryan, and to the great staff of City Planning. We will all see you. We'll see you all on Wednesday for the public hearing, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Take care.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.